Hello, this is Legomygun, and in today's video we answer the question, can you beat Fallout 4 with the Super Mega MIRV? Anyways, as usual we start with the character creator. Since I will be using a ridiculous weapon, I thought I might as well make a ridiculous character. I started out by maxing out all of this guy's features. I gave him a huge nose, a large forehead, elephant ears, and big bulging eyeballs. I then topped off my creation with a stylish haircut. This was a finished product. I kinda thought he looked like the pink-haired toy from Toy Story. You can judge for yourself. Anyways, after that, it was a glance at Codworth working away, and then a glimpse into my future with my weapon of mass destruction. I then greeted the salesman and picked my special points. I named myself The Big Cheese, for reasons that'll make sense soon. I then gave myself a 6 in Strength for Heavy Gunner, 6 in Luck for the Idiot's Font perk, 4 in Endurance for the Perception, 4 in Endurance and Perception to get the Demolition perk, and for some general protection. The rest were in the usual spots. I then said hi to the baby and made my escape to the vault. I descended, the gate opened, I dressed up as an icicle for Halloween, then freed myself from the pod. On my way out, I noticed that if you move the skeleton, the Take Pinpoint prompt is still highlighted, so I did a little experiment, which just ended up with me being teleported straight back to the pit. It was then up and out of the vault, where I made my way to Sanctuary to talk to Codsworth and get to work. My work in this case was cheesing the game. See, now my name makes sense. I proceeded to do a known item duplication glitch. I haven't tried this before and it took me a minute to get it down, but once I did, I really got things rolling. By the time I was done, I duplicated just over 30,000 oil. The reason I went for oil is that it has a pretty high market value, and I would need the caps for the catapult, medical supplies, and junk. Speaking of junk, I scrapped more items around Sanctuary so I could duplicate some steel and concrete. This was because I would need to be at least level 41 to get the perks to create the Merv. So after I duplicated a lot of steel and concrete, I headed out to Sega's Ironworks to get the magazines to build the statues. Which, if I haven't mentioned, give you a lot more XP per build than, say, a fence post. Once I got my magazine, I fast traveled back to Sanctuary and realized that in fact I would need copper, not concrete, to make the statues. So after fixing that, I placed my first of many statues. I continued placing statues. Lots of statues. By the time I was done, I had a grand army of statues. After viewing my army, I got all the perks I would need, including Strongback 3 to allow me to fast travel while over encumbered, and then I went back to Red Rocket to get the last levels I would need, nodded to my front line, and made my way to get my gun. On the way to Diamond City, I passed by the police station just to discover it for later. Once I made it to Diamond City, I went in, discovered the market, and immediately fast traveled back to Sanctuary to get my bargaining chips. I then TP'd back and got the big boy and some armor. Now, the big boy on its own does double the normal damage of the regular Fat Man. It does this by shooting 2 projectiles for the price of 1. But with the Merv attachment, it fires 2 cases of 6 mini-nukes. That's 12 mini-nukes at once. On top of that, I have the Heavy Gunner rank 4 and the Demolition rank 3. So it does somewhere between 20,000 and 40,000 DPS. It is the most powerful weapon in the game, except maybe the nuke, which you can only get that through console commands. Anyways, after I completed the Merv, I went to get Baby's first mini-nukes, and then test out the nukes on a glowing Deathclaw. As expected, it eliminated it no problem. I then reloaded the save to get my ammo back, and then headed to Diamond City to steal another nuke from Arturo. Wanting to show off the power of this gun again, I went to take on Swan, where I got too close and died the first time. The second time around went much smoother, as shown. After that victory, I went down into the subway to rescue Nick. I ran past most of the Triggermen, and tried to bash a couple to save ammo, but since I was doing little to no damage to them, I just decided to run inside. I had real trouble inside the vault, where I blew myself up trying to kill Dino on my first attempt. And all the Triggermen from outside decided to follow me inside the room on my second attempt. and I had a heck of a time trying to kill those dummies. I died so many times. I kept trying different tactics, but nothing seemed to work. I then tried to use my Merv, and yeah, I died. But not just once. I died again, and again, and again, and again. And at this point, I was getting pretty frustrated. I finally came up with an idea, and you guessed it, cheese the game. So when I came through the door followed by a small army, I fired my gun against the wall and whipped around to go back through the door. This actually worked on my first try, and all that was left was one triggerman with a bat, who I eventually withered down and put to sleep. I then talked to Nick and headed outside the vault. Once outside, I decided to get more ammo. My first stop was Cleo and Goodneighbor, so I could steal a nuke. And then I went back to Diamond City, where I traded with Percy for some stim packs. Next, I stole the nuke at the amphitheater and went back to talk to Nick. After our very brief chat, I then went up to Kellogg's room, went outside, and had a brief conversation with Dogmeat. After that, I went to get one more nuke, which after dying, I tried the mortar technique with great results. I then looted Boomer's boomies off of him and went to Fort Hagen. On arrival, I waited for Dogmeat and then immediately dismissed him, and then went to fight the cyborg. Obviously, he was unable to handle the force of several mini atomic bombs and was atomized instantly. After that, I went to free Preston from the museum, which was an odd next move, but I would need their help to build the teleporter. So after the Brotherhood helped me kill the Deathclaw, I headed back to Diamond City to advance the story further. I went to the Memory Den next, and got a snack while the Not Real Boy and the robot left Kellogg's house. It was then off to the Glowing Sea, where I decimated the Deathclaw outside of Virgil's cave, and went inside to talk to him. After our brief conversation, I headed out to eliminate the Courser. For him, I carefully positioned myself, took aim, and destroyed him and all of his prisoners with a bang. I then kindly removed the chip from his head and went to the railroad. Of course, went to the railroad means I went to the railroad and met them with a nuclear bomb. After quickly eliminating the railroad, I headed back to the Big Green Man, and then talked to Preston, who sent me to a settlement. And that settlement then sent me to Corvega, where I destroyed myself the first time, and then eliminated the raider the second time. After that, I went out searching for more nukes. I couldn't get the one from the raider on the bridge, so I then immediately gave up searching for nukes and returned to Preston. He helped me construct the teleporter, and once the teleporter was built, I began to make my way inside the Institute. Once inside, I got right to work. I decided at this point I was going to side with him anyways, but the reason I was going to side with him doesn't matter, you'll find out why later. Anyways, I talked to all the people, and then Father sent me on a mission to retrieve a sin. The mission went poorly at first, when I killed myself by trying to kill the raider with the mini nuke, and then I got force-fed a nuke by that same raider. Eventually, I used Jet and a master technique of looking epic, and got this awesome shot off, successfully killing the raider with the Fat Man. I then used a recall code on the synth upstairs, and proceeded to beat his men into submission. Once that was done, Father told me there were some robots hiding under a monument that needed to go. So I made my way to Bunker Hill, where I ran past most of the enemies outside, and only decided to deal with one enemy inside, which was a paladin. And tell you what, that man could take a hit. In the basement of the basement, I got the first synth shut down, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. I then briefly talked with the courser, and TP'd to CIT Ruins, where I had a conversation with Father on the roof. He told me that I need to attend a directory meeting, and then I would need to go to Mass Fusion. I then attended said directory meeting with my closest ally floating in the air. And then it was on to Mass Fusion. I made my way to the teleporter, entered it, and got TP'd to the roof. Once on the roof, I got the info I needed and headed down the elevator with a stealth boy. This worked pretty well, and the only time I actually got hit on the way down was when I had to stop and reset the elevator. After I reset the elevator, I hopped back in and headed into the reactor. Inside the reactor, I did some beryllium agitation and prepared for the sentry bot. That fight lasted all of 1 second. As soon as the doors opened, he was deactivated. The 2 Assaultrons went down with 1 nuke as well. Well, 1 set of 12 nukes, that is. After that, I returned to Father to get my congratulations, which of course was for him to send me back off to fetch some money. During that quest, I saw the gunners outside and decided to make it rain on them. I sucker punched any that were remaining, and then made my way inside. Inside the building, I did absolutely nothing to help convince the scientists to join the Institute. And once that mission was done, I decided to make the rounds to get more nukes. Starting with the Cabot house, where there was 1 tucked away in the basement. Then it was off to the Rotunda, where there was 1 just laying in some dirt. This one I never knew existed, which was kinda nice to find. The other one I knew, or didn't know existed, was in Virgil's cave. And the third one I didn't know existed was back near the city, on top of the little boat with the raiders on it. There's 1 in a pile of dirt. After I finished retrieving all the nukes, I went back to the Institute to record an ominous message, and then headed off to Diamond City to fix a radio. I'm so freaking glad I decided to look around this guy's room, as I found an ammo box in the corner with 4 mini nukes in it. Frickin' 4 of them. So I tried to get hidden to steal them, and when that didn't work, I just decided to screw it and steal them anyways and fix the room. So as you can probably tell, the video is getting close to over. The reason for this is my recording software decided to only capture my desktop for the remainder of my playthrough. I do plan to do a re-recording of the last bit of this playthrough because I sided with the Institute to show off my OP weapon against the Brotherhood. I did not beat Fallout 4 with only the Super Mega MIRV. Thanks for watching, please subscribe if you want. This is Legomygun signing off.